Hi, this is Mark Isaac with the Garage Gurus, and today's tech tip is on installation of two-piece rear main seals. The example we're going to use today is this Ford Big Block, and we'll just run through a few points that we should cover. First off, we'll simulate basically two different scenarios, one with the crank in the engine and one with the crank out of the engine. Assuming the crank is out of the engine, you would start by putting the rear main seal into the block first. And the first thing we'll have to reference is which direction the seal, is installed into the groove. You basically want the lip of the seal towards the engine oil. So the lip of the seal here will face towards the crankcase. So we'll place that seal into the block, and the instruction on this particular seal says to offset the seal in relation to the flange mounting area. So we're basically going to have the seal protruding up through the block surface here, about 3/8 of an inch. And when we go to put our cap on, we'll take a measurement of how much the seal protrudes out of the block, and then we'll basically duplicate that on the opposite side of the seal in the cap. Okay. Another thing that comes to play as far as sealing is whether or not to put sealant on the end of the seal itself. Some applications say to put like an RTV or an anaerobic type sealer on the end of the seal itself. This particular application says to keep it dry. So be sure to reference the instructions that come with the seal as far as whether to seal the end of the seal itself with a sealer. In the scenario where we're going to service this seal in the vehicle with the crank in place, basically to get that seal into the block, we're going to loosen all of our caps, place the seal starting into the groove, and use the crank to roll it around and push the seal into place with our finger till we have the proper protrusion out here. But yeah, with the crankshaft mains loosened, it should go into the groove without any shaving of the rubber on the back side of the seal. Before we put the seal into place, be sure to use engine oil or assembly lube on the lip of the seal. Another thing to consider is once the seal's in place and we're ready to put the cap on, we should create a dam so that oil coming out of the mains doesn't go around the backside of the seal and create a leak. So to shut off that leak path, we're going to use an anaerobic type sealer like this here. And probably the thing I want to stress the most is to use a thin amount, a very small application of this material. So we're just going to run a very small edge right there. And that'll seal against the register and the block and create basically a block for that fluid to leak out. So we'll do this on both sides. And because we're dealing with machine surfaces, a very small amount goes a long way. This material will basically spread almost clear out to the bolt holes and into this area here. And that'll be sufficient to shutting off that oil flow that could go around the back side of the seal. So we've lubricated our seal with engine oil or assembly lube, place the cap in its location. Then we'll just follow manufacturer procedure on tightening the bolts. There may be a procedure on setting the crank in position in relation to the thrust bearing by striking with a dead blow hammer on the crank forward and rearward. That right before we fully tighten the bolts down, that establishes where the crank is at in relation to the thrust bearing. This is Mark Isaac with the Garage Gurus. Thanks for watching, and be sure to subscribe to our channel.